let's create our first animation. So we're going to go in and use the preset, so under character animation, preset, and we're going to go for standard 640 by 480. So check on the right hand side, width will be 640, height will be 480, frame rate is 30, and it's a platform type action script 3. And we'll click on create. So if you watched the previous video on how to set up your desktop, you'll see that we've obviously already set this up in the workspace, which is under the essentials side of things. So under workspace, come down and click the under essentials, it's small screen, and that's the setup we've got. If your stage doesn't fit right in the middle of the screen, up on the right hand side at the corner you can say center stage, and that will center it in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over and we're going to use the tool on the left hand side, which is here, which is called the oval tool. So I'm going to click on the oval tool, and then I'm going to change the settings here. So we've got the stroke, that's the outside edge, and we're going to make this, the colour of this is, we are going to make sure that is black, and we're going to make the fill, we're going to make that a red. Now before we go any further, go to properties. We're going to change a little bit before we actually do this, and the stroke is the width of the line. So we can either drag the slider here, or in the box we can actually change that, and I'm going to make this a stroke size of 3. So enter 3 and hit enter, and that makes the width of it, and there's lots of other options as well, but for now we'll just leave it as this. Just going to go and minimise that back, and now using the same trick within as we do with Photoshop, if you hold shift down it will constrain the actual circle to actually be a proper circle. If I take that off, it will actually make it whatever size of oval you want, but we want this to actually be a full circle. So I'm just going to turn that and make that into a circle and let go. And what you'll notice is down here on that bottom timeline there is a frame, and that frame has got a little black dot in it. Let's look at doing some selection. We're going to go up and use the selection tool at the top left hand corner, and I'm going to just click on the middle of that ball that we've created, and you'll notice that it's got lots of tiny little white dots over it that shows that that's selected. But this is, if I just drag this slightly, you'll see that that is just the middle of the circle that's been selected. It hasn't selected the stroke around the outside edge. So I'm going to Ctrl Z to take that back. If I now go to the edge and click on the very edge of it, again you'll see now I've selected the stroke around the edge and not the circle. So Ctrl Z to turn that back. If I want to select all of it, I need to double click on the middle, and now if I move it around you'll see that that has actually made it the whole thing move at the same time. So what I've done is I've just moved it into the centre bottom of my screen. Now this timeline, this is where we're going to work now. I'm going to go over to the 30 mark here, that's the 30 frame rate, and what I want to do is I want to create a new keyframe, and to do that I right click and I've got the option, I can either put a blank one in, which means there's nothing going to be in it, or if I say insert keyframe it duplicates the previous frame that we had in frame 1. So now we've got that in frame 30. And what we can now do is we can now modify what has happened in frame 30. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the colour of this. So I'm going to click off the actual item to start with, and then I'm just going to go and click in the middle, and I'm going to change this to the colour blue. So what we've now got is we have got in frame 1 we have got the ball which has got a black outside edge and a red middle, and then in frame 30 we've actually got the ball again, this time with the colour blue. What we're going to do is we're going to just play this to see what happens. If I play it, it'll go through and then it just suddenly turns back to blue again. And if we use Control and Enter, what that will do is it will export this into a little mini movie, and it will then display it on your screen. And what it does is it keeps looping this to show you what will actually happen. And if you notice at the moment it's red most of the time, and then you suddenly get a little flash of blue. And we'll explain what happens when we look down at this timeline. So I'm just going to click back on frame 1 and you'll notice there's this red block above the timeline. As we drag through, you'll notice that we're on every single frame at the moment. It shows that it's red. As soon as we get to the 30 timeline, there we go, frame 30, it goes blue. So this is what's looping. It's going from red all the way through for 29 frames and then swaps to blue. Now what we want to do is we want to use the functionality built in to Animate to put the individual cells in here, the individual frames in for us, and that's called a tween. So if we right click inside between those two frames and we create something called a shape tween, don't do the motion or the classic for the moment, just do a shape tween. What it will do is it will put a line in there to say success, we've put a tween in, and you'll notice that my ball's turned into a purple colour. So again, let's go and use this little red drag section at the top here. If we click now and drag from left to right, you'll notice that as we go through the frames, it's beginning to change colour. And Animate has done this for us. So if we now hit Control and Enter to make this play on the screen, you should now see this just keep morphing through with the colours. It's as though it's pulsing. And that is your first animation. And when we save it, what we have to be careful of is at the moment it's called Untitled, so we're going to go File, Save As, and make sure you're working in your particular area. So for me, I'm going to go to where my 2020 work planning is, go under my BTEC, under my Year 2, and I'm going to create a folder here called Animations. And that's my first folder, and we're going to call this file Ball. You'll notice this is an Animate document, an FLA file. What that means is that is a proper document that's been created by Adobe Animate. It's the right format, so it will keep all of your layers and your timelines. So I'm going to go Save. Now, when I hit Control Enter again, this time it's going to export it as a Shockwave Flash movie, and you'll see again this is now called ball.swf, and that will have now been created in exactly the same folder where I created my ball.fla file.